Hey folks, join us today for an exciting guest. Steve Gielda is in the house today, and we are going to talk about sales enablement, accelerating that sales pipeline, and so much more that has to do with professional selling. Stay with us. Our book about improving customer experiences is now in audiobook format on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. Hello, everybody. Jeff Mason and Steve Gielda back for round number 2 with SimpleBiz360 podcast. Welcome, Steve, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself, if you could.
Well, thanks, Jeff. It's great to be with you and with your audience. Thanks for having me back. A little bit about myself. I'm the co-founder of a company called Ignite Selling. We're a global sales enablement company focused on helping salespeople do a better job of how they engage with their customers. We work with organizations to try to accelerate revenue through their sales pipeline by through different types of sales skills that we offer. I am based here in Austin, Texas, but the last 30 years I've spent in Northern Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C. And our grandchild, as you very well know, Jeff, what they can do for you is they packed us up and we moved out here to help our daughter and son-in-law be here and help raise our new grandson.
Well, that's great, Steve. Well, no, thanks again for being on the show. And folks, we originally had Steve on, I believe it was April 2nd, 2020, right before a big launch he and his company did on April 6th of 2020, right in the middle of that kind of lockdown period. So we're real excited to kind of pick up where we left off. Guys, if you want to follow us, we're on YouTube. We'd love your subscription. We're on 28 listening platforms. Steve, your audience as well may tap into us at anywhere on the audio platforms. Just about everywhere you can go. And so we're real excited. But yeah, so we were, we got together. Steve and I come from a powerhouse sales organization. We both kind of cut our business teeth at Lanier Business Products and that Lanier Worldwide. We had Wesley Cantrell on a couple episodes ago. He was our CEO for many years. Steve and I both worked for him in some capacity or, downline from him. But so we come from that sales. Really, sales, it's a profession, discipline. And so this really is exciting to have him on for round number 2, because round number 1, Steve and his partner, Kevin Jones, had really something exciting they were about ready to release. And I'll let you tell about it, Steve, but it was called VSPS. Tell us how that launch went and where has it taken you from then to now?
Yeah, VSPS is the virtual strategic planning simulation. And it was a solution that we created specifically for organizations in the midst of this pandemic. If you remember during that lockdown, and if you were a salesperson, you probably felt the pain of not being able to access your customers. And that's because, businesses were shut down. And if you didn't have their personal cell phone number, it was difficult to get in touch them directly. So everything was being relied on email. And so we created this simulation to help organizations that still had the responsibility of driving revenue in the midst of this pandemic. It's not like everybody just could take a vacation. Sales representatives are commission driven. Sales representatives had to find a way to continue to drive revenue with companies that they didn't have access to. Yeah. And so we created a series of mini little modules, and we, in essence, gave them away. Okay, we said, hey, if this is going to be helpful to you during this difficult time, go take advantage of them. And we had them posted on our website for about 2 years. And we just recently kind of took them down. Okay. But we wanted to try to help salespeople find a way to thrive in the midst of this challenge. And so what that really did for us was really help organizations find us as well. Yeah. Because we were really just kind of giving away some of our intellectual property, giving away some of our training, because we knew that organizations were really going to be struggling during this time period. So it ended up being a way for us to kind of give back, and unbeknownst to kind of helped our organization flourish during the pandemic, because those companies did come to us and say, hey, can you help us in a little bit more of a broader way? So that's what it was all about.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I really have to commend both of you. That was really a servant's heart at work back then. It was a very noble thing for you guys to do. And thank you. I listened back to that episode just recently, and I'll tell you, Steve, it did have kind of an eerie feel to it, listening to it now, a couple of years later, just just the heavy weightedness that you could feel on that atmosphere, just of the time frame we were in. It was, it's just kind of weird, but no, very cool. So coming out of this pandemic, you took that down a little while ago. You've obviously done a lot since the pandemic and the lockdowns. What have you learned as a sales enablement company? What have you learned, or what do you think the sales world learned from the pandemic?
It's a big question, Jeff, but I think that what people learn in the sales world is that adaptability is key. That's nothing new, but boy, did that really kind of raise to the top, is that you could no longer just rest on your laurels. If what made you successful, whatever it was that made you successful in the past, wasn't necessarily going to help you be successful during that pandemic period of time. And so those people that were able to adapt and find ways to help their customers succeed were the ones that succeeded themselves. And so when you sit back and you look at it, the biggest things that kind of fell out of this pandemic was the fact that every organization that we were partnering with, unless they were selling products that supported the pandemic in some way, medical device products, healthcare products that helped organizations succeed.
Right.
If you weren't one of those types of companies, you saw a stall in your pipeline. And then people were asking, what is it that I need to do in order to continue momentum of these opportunities in my pipeline? And our question back to them is, what were your salespeople doing prior to? Okay. Do they know, for example, who the key influencers are involved in the decision-making process? Do they know the decision criteria that customers were using to compare them against the competition? You still had the availability to find that information out if you didn't know. It was just going to happen in maybe a little different way or a little slower. But what we come to find out is that salespeople still were not doing smart things that they could have been doing or should be doing during the pandemic, so that when things loosened up, they were ready to hit the ground running immediately. So there was still a lot of selling that could have been done. And that's really what we helped organizations do. We said, it's not that the world stopped. Okay, things just slowed down and people were kind of hesitant about what was going on. But that was really only for about a quarter, maybe 4 months. Yeah. And all of a sudden things started kind of, people, hey, I got to get on with getting on. Yeah. And they said, I got to hit a third quarter number. That second quarter was really scary in 2020 for a lot of businesses. Yeah. But they realized I still got to hit a third quarter number and a fourth quarter number. And so, we kind of helped those organizations really adapt, and that they still had the responsibility of selling. And we helped them do it.
Interesting. Yeah, you almost had like a built-in 90-day to 180-day time frame where you could start really planning effectively, filling the pipeline, so that the drips started coming and the streams started coming 90, 120, 150 days out, And
I think it's both, Jeff. I think what you said is exactly right. I think it's clearly you had that opportunity to start filling that pipeline, kind of finding out where those opportunities were. But you also had all those opportunities that were in the pipeline for Q1 that you thought you were going to close in Q2, but didn't. This was your time to start thinking strategically.
Yeah, right.
Start asking yourselves a series of questions. Do you know who your competition is speaking to that you're not? Yeah. If not, now's a good time to go do it. They're not going to be making a decision right now. So start thinking strategically about what is it you need to do so that when the things started freeing up, you can hit the ground running quickly. So it's about both building the pipeline, but also preparing for that to kickstart that momentum again with all those opportunities that were in the middle of the pipeline.
Yeah, good. Well put. I mean, it's amazing, folks, how I think in the world of sales, sometimes we can overcomplicate things. Sometimes we can oversimplify things. But what I really love how you and Kevin have presented everything is it's very trimmed down in your approach, but it's very pointed and it's very strategic. And really, that's a key word with you. And I think it's an overplayed word in our genre, but when you really zero in on the definition of it, you're really advocating that, as a sales enabler, that, hey, let's get strategic here, folks, and let's really think through. And I noticed in reading through some of your information, creative thinking, stimulating the thought. I mean, talk about thinking a little bit just as a concept. And we seem to be doing so little of it as a society anymore. We're just getting fed.
Reacting.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that, thinking.
Well, I think that let me answer the question in the context of a salesperson.
Okay.
I think salespeople in general run so fast that they have a tendency to not think enough. And it's because they're reacting. And the more experienced the salesperson is, the less strategic thinking they do, the more assumptions that they make.
No kidding.
Because let's face it, they've been there, they've done it.
Yeah.
Think about, anybody who's been in sales. If you've been selling the same solution for 10 or 15 years, you kind of begin to assume that you know everything that these customers are going to say or react. If you've seen it once, you've seen it again. And what we're here to kind of say is hit the pause button just for a moment. How many assumptions are you potentially making here?
Yeah.
And so what we really are doing with our strategic snapshots, we take these tools that we call them snapshots. You're just a snapshot in time around several different areas of strategic planning. Is they're designed to challenge the assumptions that sales representatives are making around what's driving sense of urgency of this customer, to how do you know this person really is an advocate of yours? We often hear that somebody's an advocate because they're using my product. Well, that doesn't make them an advocate. That simply makes them a user.
Yeah.
So, we have to think a little bit deeper than that. What is an advocate? Is an advocate somebody who's using your product, or an advocate somebody who's willing to go advocate for your product inside that organization so more people use it? So yeah, I think salespeople in general don't slow down to think and to have somebody challenge their thinking, which is really the role of the manager or a peer. But we're so busy running, and I fall into that trap.
Sure.
We got a lot of stuff to do.
Sure.
So we just kind of want to push through this sales call because we kind of think we know what's going on, as opposed to stopping for a moment, asking customer the right question, listening, dissecting it, taking a little bit deeper, really understanding it before we react to the customer. So yeah, I think that in general, salespeople are probably spending more time speaking than they are listening.
Yeah. Well, amazing input. And I really like how you put that in. Here I am sitting here. I'm thinking back to when I was in executive leadership and had a sales force reporting to me. You're sitting in these meetings thinking that your mature salespeople are really the ones that are more strategic. And you're saying there's a good chance they may be less strategic than they were ages ago. And I love this idea of a snapshot, kind of like taking a Polaroid, putting everything in a still mode so you can see. It's kind of like remember the old highlights thing for kids? Look for all the things that are, in the highlights, montage of things. You've really got to see it for what it is and learn how to pick out the strategy from what you're seeing. So a wonderful tool that I know is a component of your sales enablement platform, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
So yeah,
right. It is.
So, well, Steve, thank you for that. And 2022, here we are going into 2023. What's the biggest challenge for sales-driven organizations right now, do you think?
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenge facing organizations right now, and probably started seeing this trend in Q2 of 2022, is sales leaders, VPs, CROs, worrying about pipeline momentum, finding that opportunities are stalling. And the question is how do I accelerate opportunities through the pipeline? We started researching this, and one of the things we found out from the clients that we work with is that 74% of all opportunities are stalling in the pipeline for longer than the 30 days than what the sales representative believes is necessary. So 74% of the opportunities are stalling. Now, here's the real kicker, is when we ask the sales representative, why did it stall? What we hear are responses such as, well, the customer's going through some change, or the customer right now it's not in their budgetary period, or the customer is in the process of merging with another organization. All of the answers that we heard, most of the answers that we heard, have one common denominator, of which 92% of the sales representatives surveyed said that they're, in one way or another, they're blaming the customer as to why the opportunity has stalled. However, if you stop and you ask sales representatives some questions for a stalled opportunity, questions such as, what are the three critical business metrics this customer is trying to improve in the next 12 months And how specifically can your solutions help drive that? Sales reps don't know. So now, wait a minute. Is this opportunity stalling because of something that the customer's not doing? Or is this opportunity stalling because you didn't create urgency enough to show them how they can be successful in driving their business metrics with your help? That's just one little example.
Sure.
But it's amazing that when organizations focus on doing the right things in the early, middle, and late stages of their pipeline, and there's accountability to that, our research is showing that opportunities are moving through the sales pipeline process at a rate of 36% faster. So that's revenue at a much quicker pace.
Sure.
And this is what we're finding organizations really struggling with. This is what's keeping the chief revenue officers and the VPs of sales up at night right now, is how do I get the revenue through my pipeline quicker? And I think as we start going into 2023 and we hit a potential recession, that's going to become even more of a priority for organizations.
Absolutely. Yeah, interesting. So how does Ignite Selling training, address this challenge?
Yeah. There's three things that Ignite Selling is doing to help organizations do a better job of accelerating revenue through the pipeline. Number one is that we kind of go back and re-examine how they're defining each stage of their pipeline today. Everybody has got some kind of definition. But again, in our research, if we go in and we say, hey, if I talk to 3 of your top performers today or 3 of your sales managers today, and I ask them one question, what has to happen within an account to move an opportunity from stage 2 in your pipeline to stage 3? Will I get a consistent answer? The answer that's no. So that's a problem. That means there's not a clear way to define what must have to happen in stage 2 to move an opportunity to stage 3. And so therefore people are defining it however they want to define it. And so therefore they're saying, I have this opportunity in stage 3, where maybe it really belongs in stage 1 or stage 2. So first thing we do is we go in and we help them really redefine the stages of their pipeline process. That's number one. Number two is that we bring in the skills necessary to help them accomplish those action items in their pipeline. So if in fact, going back to the previous example, if in fact one of the milestones is to identify the top critical business metrics the company is trying to improve and to align your capabilities to those business metrics. By the way, you understand, Jeff, I didn't say what are the needs of the customer. Every customer has needs. I want to know what's the business metric you're trying to improve. Sales representatives often don't know that. But what we'll do is we'll teach them the skills necessary to identify what those business metrics are and how to quantify your value to those business metrics. So number two is we bring in a set of skills, and we bring in those sets of skills in a simulated manner. I won't bother getting into the whole methodology, but we do it through simulations. And then the third thing we do is we help managers teach managers how to coach both to that sales process and how to coach strategically. So again, it's making sure the pipeline is well-defined, providing a set of tools that help accelerate those action items through that pipeline, and then teach the managers on how to coach to it.
Yeah, so you're feeding into this sense of lack of urgency, what you're finding, and getting the metrics accomplished in a quicker period of time. And these are the tool sets you're using. And again, simulation. If I'm really understanding your company correct, Steve, I look at it and I say these snapshots are a core component of how you go about doing things. But simulation is a huge component of how you achieve the leadership, outcome of your working with companies. I mean, you're really using this simulation effectively. And just for the audience, if they don't really know the power of the simulation right now, what really makes that so special? What's the essence that makes that so special?
I think it's important for me to really define, when we're saying the term simulation, what are we meaning? Because simulation is a very broad term. People have been using simulations in flight simulators and live fire exercises, those kinds of things. So when we're talking about a simulation, what we are talking about is a full immersion experience where it's not a computer-based simulation. It's usually going to be done in a virtual setting through a Zoom or Teams meeting, or done live. And we have two types of simulations. content simulations where we might teach some of these skills that we're talking about around how do you quantify value?
Okay.
How do you better manage key influencers? How do you influence decision criteria? How do you create urgency? All of those kinds of critical skills. And we create a mock website, set of mock characters, and we teach people kind of how do you do this in a simulated environment so that you can translate that back out into the field. And so when we're talking about simulations, we don't teach anything through PowerPoint. We don't believe that salespeople learn by having a quote unquote expert in front of the room telling salespeople what they need to stop doing and start doing. Salespeople are smart, some smarter than others. So let's leverage the intelligence and the wisdom that we have of our sales team by merely putting them into an environment where they get to share their ideas and best practices. And even the best of the best in that room is going to get pushback from a peer. They're going to simply saying, Jeff, I hear what you're saying, but I think if you go down that road, you're going to find 3 landmines. Let me tell you what they are. And that most senior sales rep who's never been questioned before because he's President's Club winner for the last 7 years, all of a sudden is getting pushback. He's going to have to kind of defend his thinking. And so simulations are a great way to really help people, kind of the old proverb, iron sharpens iron.
Sure.
Kind of let these 2 strong-willed individuals, these salespeople, or all of these folks come together, just kind of learn from each other. Yeah. And that we create that environment in our simulations.
Very cool. Wow. Hats off to you for harnessing a type A room full of type A people, trying to do that. But no, I mean, I love what you say about the no PowerPoint. This is full immersion. It's really, it sounds tremendous. I've never been through one, but I also like another thing that you guys do or a direction you take. You talk about the middle a lot, and, you take a look at, there is, when you really look at Pareto's principle, that 80% of anything really exists in so much of our life. So here we have this 80% sector that so many people and companies and training programs and books forget. They're always talking about how to avoid that bottom 10%, but more importantly, how to get to the top 10%. And talk about the middle, how important it is to Ignite Selling and what you do.
Well, that's where metrics are met. You can focus on that top 10% all day long, and you're never going to be able to try to drive the business outcomes that you're looking for. But if you can take that 80% and move them, improve their proficiency around certain skills, just 3%, you're moving a mountain.
Yeah.
You're taking 80% and you're moving 3% of them even better.
Yeah.
All right. And you're literally are moving a mountain. So, but it's not impossible to be done. But unfortunately, what often happens is we have a tendency to focus on the extremes. And so we're focusing on that top 10% and asking them, kind of beating them harder because they're our horses. Yeah. And you're trying to do the best you can with that bottom 10%. And the reality of it is that 10% is never going to make it.
Yeah.
So you can try and try.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
So we really do believe it is that 80% in the middle that if you can start focusing your time, energy, and effort right there, you're never going to get all of them. Think for a moment.
Yeah.
You just got 30% of them over 12 months. What could that mean to your bottom line? Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That bingo. I love the answer because I think that's a really overlooked segment of all of our efforts in whatever we do. So folks, this is really interesting. I've been probably 5 years, 6 years in sales leadership. I might have been involved in leading 100 people. Well, Steve, through his sales enablement career, has been able to work with and garner feedback and insight and information and do simulation with over 15,000 people. And so when you're really listening to Steve talk and listening about some of the, bedrock that he's commenting on, I mean, it's well founded. It's really proof in the pudding, so to speak. These are proven to be realistic, what he's talking about and what the challenges are. So let's talk about something that's also kind of realistic and it's more, I would think it's more subjective, but overlooked and ignored practices by sales leadership today. What do you think is the one nagging thing, having worked with 15,000 of them, that you see that the sales leaders just overlook?
Yeah. I love the word nagging, and because the thing that really kind of nags me is when I'm working with sales managers is the inability or unwillingness to challenge the critical thinking or assumptions of their sales reps. I've been in this industry, I said, for almost 25 years. And I can't tell you how many coaching calls I've been on, watching a sales manager coach a sales rep. And it even happens to this day where managers fall into the same trap as their reps do. When the reps are selling, they're not asking their customers the right questions. They're not challenging their customers' thinking. They're merely just kind of showing up and throwing up all over them, right? They're saying, hey, this is what I'm hearing. I want to talk to you about my products, as opposed to kind of really kind of spending the time necessary to really understand where the challenges are. Well, sales managers fall into the same trap, but it's even worse because what they're doing is they're congratulating their sales representatives on doing a good job for something to which they don't deserve it.
No.
So for example, I was on a recent coaching call, and the sales manager congratulated the sales representative for identifying who all of the key influencers are. And that's a worthwhile thing to celebrate. But you don't stop there. Yeah. And what this manager did is said, we'll just say, Mike. So Mike, help me understand. So who do you think has the highest level of influence, the most level of influence? Who do you think really supports us and who doesn't? Mike went ahead and gave the answer. Manager says, great job, Mike. I'm really happy to hear that you figured that out. Now, Mike, I want to talk to you just a little bit about what's driving the sense of urgency. And the manager went off total course. And I called a timeout there. And I said, can I just jump in and ask Mike a couple of questions? Manager said, sure. I said, so Mike, when you sit back and you look at all these key influencers, by the way, I think you did a nice job as well. But let me just kind of help you think through this just a little bit in a different way. Of those individuals that are kind of supporting us, what's been said or done to make you believe that they truly are willing to support us? What have they done? What actions have they taken? Silence. Well, let's kind of rephrase it. You say that they support us. Tell me why. And whatever it was that Mike said, and maybe it was something about that they use our solutions. Okay, yeah. Well, they've been using our product all the time. Terrific. You mentioned that there are some people, Mike, that don't support us. Are these people that do support us, we'll call them advocates, are they willing to go talk to those other individuals to try to neutralize them? Will they go do that for us? I don't know. Can we go find out? Can we go find out if these people that really do support the solutions that we brought to the table, that they're willing to go talk to those naysayers, those individuals that really want to kind of kick us out and bring in our competitor? Are they willing to go talk to those individuals? I'm not sure. Well, let's go find out. What could we do? What questions can we ask them? And so we started kind of dissecting that dialogue. And then I flipped on the other side. And I said, of those individuals that don't like us, what kind of conversations have you had with them? Who have you spoken to there? What's their pushback against our capabilities? Why are they on that other side of the equation where they don't support what we do? I don't really know. Well, can we grow in this account if they remain on that side of the equation? Can we really expand our reach if we have these 3 individuals of the 6 that are involved here against us? No, I can't. So it's a way to demonstrate that managers don't ask questions that challenge the thinking of their sales reps. Yeah. So it drives me crazy where managers celebrate it. Nice job. You found out who the people are. Let's move on to a different topic because you've done what I think you need to get done. And I'm like, no, they haven't. Yeah. They've done something that is the basics 101 of selling. Yeah. But how do you know they've really done it and done it well? So what we believe that managers need to do is to challenge the assumptions and the critical thinking of their sales reps. And that not to be antagonistic, sure, but to help them.
Sure. Yeah.
To help them kind of accelerate that opportunity. Because if they don't do anything with those adversaries that are over there, and maybe it's a new prospect, this opportunity is going to stall because these adversaries over there don't want it to see go through.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, it brings up another question. It's kind of like going back to the old, Peter principle type of thing. I mean, do you find that? I mean, and again, I think we know what the answer is, but you're working with a sales manager who might not have the capability to coach that salesperson into that critical thinking. Maybe they've reached their Peter principle. Maybe they're actually better as a rep and not as a coach or a sales manager, which I have run into in my career over and over. You just go that, I know what the problem is here. That person's really not qualified to be there. There's no assistance. And you're really talking about,
right? I was one of them.
Right.
I got promoted too soon.
Yeah. Well, you learn the hard way. Yeah. Well, very good. Well, so that's the one thing that sales managers overlook. And what about salespeople? What are you finding is really something that they overlook as a basic fundamental aspect of their profession?
I think that, I'm going to use the saying that you and I know so very well. And it said maybe it'll do different words, but the old is forever now.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Right? Yeah, it's an old linear saying for your audience, right? It's an old linear saying. But I think that is so very, very true, is that sales representatives have a tendency to not listen. So therefore, they have a tendency to ask maybe a question because they went through a sales training class and the sales training class told them they need to ask more questions. And they ask the questions, but they don't listen. Mm-hmm. The customer might say, hey, the things that we're trying to accomplish are X and their biggest challenges are Y. Sales representatives, what they don't do often enough is dig deeper. Mm-hmm. Sales representatives need to be simply saying, so help me understand, why are those the metrics today? Or how well were you able to reach those metrics last year? What brought you success? What were some of the barriers to reaching your objectives? Yeah. Why are these the biggest challenges you're facing? Yeah. What are the implications if these challenges aren't fixed for 2023? So they don't ask those follow-up questions because they didn't listen, right, or they're in too much of a hurry to get to what's important to them. And that is, let me tell you why I'm really here. Yeah. And it starts talking about their capabilities and their solutions. So, I think that's it's a skill that salespeople, I think, will forever continue to struggle with. And a lot of that simply stems from not poor training. It comes from maybe poor coaching and probably marketing. Well, I mean, and I'm not trying to throw folks under marketing under the bus, but too often marketing is one of those folks that gives these sales pitches or these decks to the sales reps. And they tell them all the whistles and bells and things they need to tell the customer. That's great, but only when the time is right.
Yeah. Well, and you're speaking to something that, as a baseline fundamental, tool in your tool belt as a sales professional, listening is paramount. And, I talk about it quite often on my podcast. Matter of fact, I'm doing a podcast and a couple episodes on a little snippet of this, but, I'll never forget. And it really, as a sales manager, my wife asked me on a Sunday once, and it went like this: Jeff, could you go up to Marissa's room, go in the bureau or the dresser, and the middle drawer, there's a pink pair of shorts there. Could you grab those and bring them down? So I made it upstairs. I got into the bedroom and I looked at the bedroom and I go, okay, I'm up here for a reason. What am I supposed to get? Honey, what was that? Oh my gosh. It's the, dresser drawer, middle drawer on the right, pink shorts. And it really, and you come back downstairs and she says, are you listening to me? And it really dawned on me then that, when I went back and I talked to my sales group about it, was that, we can hear all day long, but are we listening to what's being said? And then, one of the things I'm talking about in a couple episodes, then when you inject this societal drag bag, I call it, that we have with us, that, at home, we're the interrupter, we're the over talker, we're the one upper, we're the jump inner, and we're waiting, to your point, we're thinking about what we're going to do next. And a lot of times as salespeople, I find that, you don't know the basics well enough. You haven't rehearsed what you're doing or selling well enough that you're thinking about what to say next, when in actuality, you should be knowing through muscle memory what's going to happen next.
Right.
And all that, if you pack if you put the interrupter and the, over talker and the, all that away, and you know what you're supposed to be saying next, you have the opportunity then to just bathe in the words, the meanings behind the words a customer's saying. And I see this I see this with management.
All the time.
I mean, I'm Steve. I've been in meetings where I bring in the big guns, right? And you sit down, and the minute that big gun comes in and sits down, he's checking his messages on his phone. He's just setting up the computer, getting on. Hey, what's the password here, dude? You're my VP. I could do this, pal. I need you for something bigger and better, and you're blowing it right out of the gate. And again, I could go on, but it's I love your input on that, and how much of our society is locked into hearing and not listening. If you listen well enough, your customers will tell you a ton of information.
Absolutely.
I mean, one of my exercises, I recommend customer feedback MVP. You know who's the best customer feedback MVP? Is we are. Go grab a cabin for a night, turn off all of your technology, and think about what customers have said to you. Write it down. Once you start writing down what they've said to you, you can understand the meaning behind why they said things. And you never,
exercise.
Right? You never critically thought about it before.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous exercise.
Yep.
So, I mean, great stuff. I mean, I love it. So, folks, this is what, if you're interested, and again, you focus on 50 or more people in a sales force is really your sweet spot. Is that correct?
Yep. That's correct.
So folks, Kevin Jones and Steve put out this book. I hope you can see it, but this is a book they put out in June of 2022. Fast track to some really great success on Amazon. If you want to speak to that a little bit, I'd love you to.
Yeah. This is our second book, as you know. We talked about the first book in our first podcast, and we were just blown away that this book made the Amazon top 4 in June of 2022. So we were really excited about the fast track, and the book just continues to do well. For us, it's a calling card, and we're happy to give these books away. In fact, if you want to go to the website, you can download the first chapter of the book, and then if you fill out some information, we'll give you a copy of the audiobook for no charge. So so if you're interested in wanting to know a little bit more about the book, want to listen to it, please feel free to just hit us up on our website, igniteselling.com.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I'm so happy for you that it was so successful. And Premeditated Selling is the first book, which is great. I had not read this book yet, but I got it and I will. But Premeditated Selling, loved it, read it, and love it. So here's what I like about the book, though, folks. And again, as Steve said, where to get it, Amazon.com. Plus, you can go to igniteselling.com to get connected to it as well. But I love the fact that you zero in on some important headers for the book content. No more, no less. It's not overabundance of stuff. It's just zero. And I just want to read a quick 5 things and then have you speak a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure.
But the 5 areas that Steve compartmentalized: building a well-defined sales pipeline, understanding your customers' buying factors, effectively managing key influencers, influencing the competitive landscapes, and then quantifying your value. And you drill down deeper into these, but speak about why those were your header categories and how essential these really are as they knit together.
These particular headers fell out of the first header, the last 4, okay, 2 through 5 that you just mentioned, fell out of the work that we were doing around pipeline assessment. So one of the things we were finding out is after we finished helping an organization better define their sales pipeline, the things to which salespeople were struggling with most were those last 4 things. Okay. Number 1 was the inability to really understand how their customers can be making a buying decision. Number 2, not just who's involved, but how do you manage those influencers more effectively? You may know who your competition is, but do you know how to influence the criteria that the customer is using to compare you against competition in your favor? And then the last one is, do you know how to effectively quantify the value so that the negotiation that you may have to go into is in your favor right off the bat? And we just come to find out that those are the things. And if you think about each one of those things, those are often used kind of in a linear process. Understanding how your customers making their buying decisions, a little bit more upfront. Understanding and managing the key influencers, a little bit more towards the front to the middle aspect of it. Neutralizing those adversaries, those kinds of things. Understanding the criteria to which your customer is making a decision towards the middle, towards the end of that. And then quantifying that value as well towards the middle, towards the end. So these are just simply things to which we have found in our win-loss analysis with our clients that are common over and over and over again, are things to which salespeople are missing. So we decided to put a book together on this. We have the content to teach salespeople on these things. And each one of those 4 areas is a snapshot tool.
Okay, there you go.
It's a 2-hour learning module. So and we're finding that organizations that are using that stuff are having great success.
So this really is coming out of the bedrock of what you're, when you partnership with companies and go through your simulation training and all that. Okay, great. So excellent. Thank you for highlighting that. And, just tell me how do you respond to a sales manager who just says, you know what, Steve, this all looks good. Or, I'm listening to this podcast. It all looks good and sounds good. But you know what? My salespeople just need a good old fashioned kick in the rear. They need to go out there, make more calls, be more aggressive, and, ask for the order 5, 6, 7 times. What do you say to that?
One of the things I say is they're probably not wrong. Okay. But it's probably not enough.
Okay.
All right. So one of the things that we do with those managers is that we'll simply say, let's do a win-loss now. Let's do a loss analysis. Let's simply bring a sales representative on the call with us, and let's kind of look at one of those high impact, one of those really most critical deals that they had to win. And let's dissect that. Let's find out whether or not they're really doing all the things that are necessary to have greater success.
Yep.
And so we'll dissect a recent loss.
Okay.
What we expose in that conversation in probably no more than 5 minutes. What we expose the fact that the sales representative didn't lose because of price. They were outsold. Very good. It's nothing more than about 5 questions.
Yeah.
First question simply might be, what was the decision criteria other than price that the customer is using to compare you against competition? Yeah. Sales reps don't know that.
Yeah. Wow.
They'll say it was price, and price was the most important factor. I'm sure it was. Price was probably the most important factor for your customer, but it wasn't the only factor.
Right.
What was the other decision criteria? Or second question, which of those decision criteria, which of your unique capabilities, the things that only your product can do, was considered as one of those criteria? None of them? Your customer didn't consider any of the unique capabilities that your product does in their decision. Wow.
Yeah.
Whose fault is that?
Yeah. Right.
And so we'll just go through 5 questions. And we don't do this to embarrass the sales rep or the manager. What we do is simply to expose that as good as your people are, they still can get better.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, great stuff. And I know that when we were taught selling right out of the gate, out of college, and it was really, what was evident to me is you could never figure out what ammunition you needed unless you went through a bevy of upfront questioning, because you can't just go in there and start talking about something the way you want to talk about it. You've got to talk about and address that from meeting the needs or creating that value to what they're telling you, so that, I see how this is all knitting together. And again, folks, this is great stuff. And if you ever needed to look into grabbing onto a company who understands this, understands how to dissect it, understands how to, not make it overly heavy on information, but pointed. It's pointed. It's right to the meat and potatoes of what the sales process is. You're looking at it. Ignite Selling, I mean, I can't say enough. And I understand you guys have also, you've had a pretty good award year again, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? You want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, who's not happy to talk about their awards? I mean, you and I came from the environment of awards of Lanier, where we got all the different kinds of plaques and the president's clubs and all that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, we're very proud of a number of awards that Ignite Selling has been nominated for, won, or have come in the finalist for. And 2 of them probably that we're really proud of is the Selling Power top 20 award. So in other words, we're one of the top 20 best sales training companies in the world today. Wow. And they go through a whole analysis based upon criteria, interview your customers, all of those kinds of things. And we're really proud of that. And the other one is the training industry's best companies to watch list. And so which of these up and coming companies should we be watching for sales enablement? And Ignite Selling made that for 2022. And just most recently, Jeff, we were at a conference for a sales enablement platform called HighSpot. HighSpot's a terrific sales enablement platform to help organizations do a better job of executing sales plays for their sales representatives through a technology platform.
Okay.
And they have about 30 different sales methodology partners and some big ones that we're up against. If any of your listeners are in the kind of sales world, they may have heard of things like Challenger Sale or things like Sandler or things like Corporate Visions or Korn Ferry, Miller Hyman. And so we were up against some really big companies here, and we were nominated as one of the top 4 finalists for an award as the best marketplace partner. Unfortunately, that award went to Corporate Visions, and we're happy for them. But yes, for Ignite Selling to be kind of up there with the big boys was a real honor.
Well, congratulations. I mean, yeah, wonderful stuff. And I mean, I'm so happy for you to see, especially somebody coming out of the same pipeline that, I did. And you just know there's so much excitement in the world of selling, and you really, and you have a way of bringing your energy and enthusiasm to it, and just making it an interesting process. I would imagine going through a workshop with you. So, well, speak a little bit, if you can, to the experience economy, and it's directing sales organizations now to kind of have a different association with that client engagement, that client success model. What is it about this experience economy that's making the sales process a little different today?
Yeah, I think that salespeople today need to recognize, probably ever more than ever, is that their customers just don't have time, or really, frankly, have the need to have to talk to them. Information that they need, they can find on your website. They can find from talking to peers. They can talk from going to trade shows, whatever it might be. Excuse me. And so, as we go forward, we need to be more laser focused as salespeople. And we need to not kind of cast as broad of a net. And I fall into this trap even today. My business partner, Kevin, would tell you, you're casting your net too broad. And we really do need to be more laser focused on finding those customers that we really, truly can help, and helping those organizations better achieve the business metrics that they're seeking to reach. So it's not just about helping a client solve a problem or to meet a need of a customer. It's about understanding what's behind that need.
Okay.
Why is that need so critical today? Why now is a question I like to ask. And they'll tell you, well, right now, we're facing some government regulations in our industry. And if we don't adapt, we're going to find ourselves kind of in the dark ages tomorrow. So that's kind of an important why. And so I think that as we go forward, top performers are going to raise to the top and differentiate themselves from the average performers that are out there by their ability to stay focused on a fewer number of customers to where they can help drive true, real business outcome.
So you think some of the perception on customers' end when they get needless phone calls or senseless phone calls that lack direction, or solicitations or just retouches that lack any knowledge of what they do? I mean, is that a turnoff factor up front for these?
I think it needs to be vetted out quicker.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a matter of you don't talk to those folks, because you never know what's going to be there. But top performers today are able to vet that out very quickly, and to determine whether or not this is a fit for them or not.
Yeah.
And if it's not a fit for them, doesn't necessarily mean you have to say no to the customer. Ignite Selling works with a lot of consultants and partners that are in the industry today. Right. And if it's not a fit for us, we'll turn them over to one of our partners and simply say, you know what, Mr. Customer, we think this is probably a better fit. And it could be because maybe they only have 7 sales representatives, or because they're still a little bit unclear about what they want to do, or they're waiting for VC funding or Series B funding.
Yeah.
And that's just not probably a client that's going to be a good fit for us. But you don't want to tell the client no. So you'll want to simply say, hey, this isn't a fit for us. We do appreciate you reaching out for us, but can I make a recommendation for you to maybe one or two other companies that I really do believe could be a real good fit for you? And I'll make the personal introduction, not just give you the name, but I'd like to make a personal introduction for you. Clients always happy about that. And then we simply pass that on.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. If the first time you do that, I remember doing that as a young pup coming out of college in sales in New York City. And, it was amazing. You went through these questions, and really, if you realize you couldn't help somebody, there was something magical about saying, you know what, I really have to admit, I'm not going to sit here and try to sell you something you're not going to be able to use.
Absolutely.
We're really not a fit. Do you know someone else who might be able to benefit from what we do? And to your point, passing on a warm introduction to a capability fitter, a hand in glove fit that's more suited for that company today. Yeah, there's something really magical about that. And I've had people say to me, "Wow, that was really nice of you." And my next response is, "Well, yeah, when you move around, as you move around in your corporate career, just keep my name and number handy.
Sure.
Don't forget me, and I'll be more than happy to help you. But don't forget me."
And I tell you, that does come around.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, with technology today, like LinkedIn,
sure.
I'm sure you're probably just like I am. You'll get LinkedIn with them,
Yep.
and they'll follow you, and it's a way for them not to forget you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not back in our day. We didn't have LinkedIn. We had a card box,
Yeah.
and we had a little 3x5 cards we had to write things on. Now we're showing our age.
Yeah, the tickler files, right? The tickler files.
Exactly right.
I love it. Well, listen, just a few more questions. And what would, I'm just intrigued by this question. What one skill would you consider your professional hallmark, Steve? What would it be?
I think driving business outcomes. I think that, as a small business, one of the things I adopted was a phrase that I heard from a McKinsey consultant. And I'll leave his name out of this podcast, but he probably doesn't even know I continue to use it time and time again. But his first name was Rob. And Rob said, "Steve, if I can just get my consultants to recognize that the profits and revenues of our business are merely an economic outcome of helping their customers succeed, we'll never have to worry about revenue." So we've kind of taken that on as a mantra. We said, okay, this is kind of what our business stands for. This is what my sales team stands for. Is that the revenues to which you produce and the profits that our companies produce is merely just an economic outcome of doing what's right for those customers. Help those customers succeed, and you will forever be taken care of.
It's kind of like Harold Janine says, you want to write a book, write the end to the book and then fill in the rest. You're basically saying, hey, customer centricity will trickle back upwards. It's not, it's not board centricity. It's not shareholder centricity. It's not internal. It's customer centricity. And big.
Amen.
Yeah. So
Amen.
That's great. That's great. So for the folks who have worked with you and Kevin, just, I know there's a partnership with you and Kevin, and if they don't know, or you've never been able to put it on tape, how do you guys complement each other so that, it is a hand in glove fit for yourself and for customers?
Well, Kevin's the brains behind the entire operation. Okay. So we split the business responsibilities 50-50. And so I manage all sales and marketing. And so me and my team are out there, doing our best to try to continue to drive revenue. Everything else in the business is really managed by Kevin and his team. And because we're a simulation-based organization, that means that they have to really get smart on every client that we bring in the door. Okay. They have to be able to write storylines and write simulations and write characters that are realistic to our clients. So his team of writers are always very busy trying to write these storylines. Okay. In addition to that, he's also responsible for new product development. And so as we come up with these new ideas, we're brainstorming over different things. It's Kevin that has to be responsible for kind of figuring out how we're going to bring this product to market. And so he has that responsibility. And then on top of that, he has the responsibility for all the operations side of it, of payroll and finances and all those kinds of things. So he's truly the brains behind the operation. I'm merely just a mouthpiece.
Well, hey, that's well. So there you go, folks. You have the Ignite Selling breakdown. So just two more questions, and sure. I know that you probably have a lot of customers. You seem like an open book. You seem like you share everything with people. But for the people who have worked with you and work with you right now, what's one thing about you that they might not know? Kind of a cool fact.
That's kind of a cool fact. I think I am a pretty much of an open book, and most of my clients we'll eventually probably find this out just through our partnerships and relationships that we forge, is the fact that I do play a guitar in our church praise band. And so I have been a guitarist since my college days, probably high school days when I first picked it up. But I have been playing in a church band for almost 20 years now. So about 14 years we lived in Virginia, maybe longer than that, and now about 4 years here. So that's probably one fact that people start hanging around me a little bit. Yeah. They'll learn a little bit more about me, and that's one of the things they'll probably pick up.
Well, that's so cool. Well, speaking of that, I get to see Steve, connected with him on some social media, and your love for family is obviously just so strong. Your love for God so strong. So thank you for sharing that, and sure. I really do. I mean that sincerely. You're a man that really puts a lot in your family, and that's neat to see these days.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, no. So we'll get to your social media platforms and connectivity in a second. But again, folks, this is the book on Amazon. And just Steve, before we close out, is there anything I failed to ask you or forgot to ask you?
I don't know of any one thing, but if people are curious about kind of how to find me, look me up on LinkedIn. It's a funny last name. It's a Polish last name, but it is Gielda. You'll find my bio on LinkedIn, and you can obviously find our company on at igniteselling.com. And if you're just looking for some help, just simply, hey, you want to have a 15-minute conversation about an account that you're struggling with? Drop me an email. Hit me up on LinkedIn. And I'd be glad to spend some time chatting with you. Awesome. I love talking sales. And if I can be of some help to you, let me know.
Awesome. Well, that's super. And folks, if you go in the show notes of this show on YouTube, we're going to have Steve's website. We're going to have the links to both of his books as well on Amazon. So we'll put all that up there. And then the final question, we love ending with this. We love music. We love rock and roll. And we always ask you, what is your Lost in the Shuffle tune that has a special significance in your life that you'd like to share with us? And then we'll put it up in the form of a card. On the YouTube experience, you'll see it up in the upper right-hand corner. You can play it.
I don't know if this song particularly has a special significance. How about just a special in the context of great days of college?
Okay.
Okay. So it's kind of a lost track. I don't know how many of your listeners would even remember the band The Outfield. It came out in 1985, and it was their debut album called The Outfield. And there's a track on there that's called Your Love. And it's just one of those really kind of cool songs from the 80s that didn't get a lot of airplay. There were other songs that The Outfield were more popular on that. But back in 1985, when that song was kind of, that album came out, it was probably the track that I enjoyed listening to most. And we played it at parties. And when we were getting into trouble and doing things we probably shouldn't have been doing.
Well, it's a great tune, and folks, the Outfield. I think they're out of Birmingham, England, but they were, they didn't really do all that well in England. They came over here, they did pretty well. The song itself, I forget what it hit, but it did pretty well, number 6 maybe or something like that. But they kind of, they looked at English sports and a lot of soccer as this fall, cold weather, muddy thing, and they loved our baseball fields, these well-manicured baseball fields, and the outfield grass, and they were just, the outfields. They started wondering more about our Western sports, and so they grabbed onto this name. And I looked it up the other day. The record company said, you know what? They were like, we don't really, name's pretty weak. No, we like the name, the record company said. So they stuck with it. And
they had you're right. They had they had more success here in the United States. Yeah. And then what they end up, after they had their success in the United States, they end up doing their European tour. Yeah. And they end up coming out with 2 other albums, one in 87 and one in 89. I can't remember the name. They had one hit in 89. I can't remember what it was, but they had a couple of other albums that came out. But check them out.
Yeah, we're gonna put up the old MTV. For those who don't know what MTV is, the video that spooled around from them on that. But Steve, gosh, we're so excited for you and Kevin. Congratulations on all the recent success. Thank you so much for being a warrior during the pandemic and putting something out there for free, putting something out there as a olive branch to help companies find their way back through that calamity, and just everything you're doing now, folks. If you're looking for a way to really get a better handle on your sales force and your direction and your company and growing your revenue and all these things, please give Steve a shout. And Steve, hopefully we'll grab another cup of coffee in Austin sometime soon. But if not, my friend, thank you so much, and you have a wonderful set of holidays, and thanks again.
Thanks, brother. Good talk to you.
Take care. So long.